Right, welcome back to Transcending Humanity. I just wanted to remind everybody that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests on the show are their own and not those of their respective employers or organizations or what have you. I also want to remind everybody to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/transcendinghumanity. Send us money, please. We really like money, especially me, because this show gets expensive, especially because all of my initial promo rates when I started the show went away. This week, I'm handing control of the mic over to Jess. So, Jess, take it away.
Take your mic. There we go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are so grateful to have all of you watching and listening. This is episode 41 of Transcending Humanity podcast, and it's about supporting queer businesses. And we want to support queer businesses all the time, but especially with Pride Month starting in just a few days. I'm taking the reins of this episode as the main host. This is Jess. My pronouns are they, them. I'm joined by Vanessa and Misty, who is our special guest from Euphoria Threads. Before we jump into the main dish of the episode, I'm going to let Vanessa and Misty, well, Vanessa kind of introduced herself already, but we at least want to hear from Misty. Feel free to, actually, you've got to do the icebreaker too, Vanessa, so please chime in just a minute. So the icebreaker question for today is, do you agree with the recent court ruling that a taco is a sandwich?
There was a court ruling?
There was.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Up your way.
Which court?
Yeah.
Indiana.
Fucking Indiana.
Yeah. Indiana.
I mean, the only time I really care about tacos is when somebody's face is buried between my legs. So
See, there you go.
You knew that was coming, Jess.
I knew.
You don't ask a question about tacos to your favorite lesbian without. I think a taco is a taco, honestly. It's its own thing. That's why there's like chocolate tacos and other kinds of tacos. So a taco is a taco, be it a meat taco or a fish taco.
Just had to go there, didn't you?
I did.
I love it. I also agree a taco is a taco. Gonna put a little spin out here. I think a hot dog is a bread taco, not a sandwich.
Yes.
You win the internet. You have won the internet.
Absolutely.
Here. Prize.
Yes.
You get a unicorn. So that's a very good point.
Well, I kind of agree. Pretty much. I also think a taco is a taco. I haven't really read too much into the backstory of this. I do think this brings up the question kind of existentially of like, what is a taco? You know, what is a sandwich? How do you define those things? And it turns out it's a little hard to define, but I still think there's a difference between the two, personally. Okay, well, without further ado, we'll stop talking about tacos.
Maybe we'll get some, well, I mean, a taco is also it's like a joined thing, unless you have a hard shell and then it's gonna break. But in a sandwich, it's two pieces like this. But what about like a hoagie or like a po' boy or something?
Right. I do think that this court also considered a gyro a sandwich.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, a hero is a taco.
Honestly, I need to do a little more research on why they're meddling in lunch. You know, like, I'm not sure. But, yeah, there were a lot of taco opinions. I don't know.
Taco.
I don't know. It's just, anyway.
Oh, shit.
All right, well, enough about tacos. See, now I'm starting to get hungry. There's that, it's just like never fails. I just had dinner, but it doesn't matter. Thank you, testosterone. Okay, so
Yeah.
I have some questions for Misty. I really wanted to invite her on and hear a little bit about Euphoria Threads. Let's see. Around this time last year, we started talking about rainbow washing, and this kind of comes up every Pride. And I feel like, especially this Pride, that conversation is so much stronger because of what happened last year with Bud Light and Target just completely dropping the queer community and squashing all of us with their boots. I feel like there's an even stronger push to spending your merch dollars or your Pride gear budget with actual queer-owned businesses instead of greedy corporations. The trick about this is, the greedy corporations have the money for advertising dollars, and they're just a lot more in your face, even with their really crappy little Pride collections that they're going to only sell online or have at the back of the store. So they end up being more effective in garnering people's attention. But I had noticed Euphoria Threads Co. actually on the Threads app, not related, the Threads meta app, as the queer algorithm runs pretty strong there, and I've been hanging on there a bit. And I reached out to Misty and just offered a chance to come on the show and like I said, just hear a little bit more about Euphoria Threads. I really like the site. It's very cool. I have some other opinions about gear specifically, but I don't want to jump into all that. Let me get some questions to you first. So can you tell us a little bit of the background story behind Euphoria Threads? Like, how'd you get it started? What led you to create the company and decide to go on this venture?
Yeah, for sure. So we founded Euphoria Threads, my spouse, SJ, and I, last year. We have a lot of experience. We both work in the custom apparel industry. And so making apparel is just in our wheelhouse already and natural. And we have some understanding of production. So it felt like a nice evolution. And, probably 14 years ago, we actually started a different pride wear company called Proud Threads, which was a lot of fun and we loved it, but it was always a side gig. And our careers, like our day jobs, started taking more energy. So we ended up shutting that down because we just couldn't keep both things up. Mm-hmm. Since then, SJ has come to understand their identity as non-binary trans masc. They don't like to say they came out. They let people in on that. And in the past couple of years. So that's been like, you've experienced euphoria, I hope. And that feeling of wanting to be able to bottle that and share it with everyone is very strong. And with that timing also came the increase of rhetoric and legislation against the trans community, which prompted us to start Euphoria Threads. We wanted to put a different message out there that showed people, if you're wearing our designs or you're putting our stickers out there, you're telling people in your everyday life, like, you belong, you're valid, you're welcome here, and you're just countering that hatred. So that's what led us to creating Euphoria Threads. And then, last year, SJ was mostly like launching everything. Every design you see, the website, that's all SJ. Doing all of that. And I'm just in the background saying, what if you change this? And let's try that. But that's how Euphoria Threads came to be, is we wanted to counter the messages we were seeing and create a space for trans and queer joy and uplift that.
That's so awesome. I love, it's so hard to, it's so tough right now in this culture of, anti-queer and especially anti-trans sentiment, and, being able to take that energy that happens as we're kind of going through facing all of this in our culture and being able to, spin that into a positive thing or, harness that joy and try to find a way to spread it is really awesome. We're definitely major fans of trans joy on this podcast, right, Vanessa?
We've done a few episodes on it.
Yes. It's really vital. I mean, in whatever way works for, the individual. I just think it's like how we're going to make it through these tough times right now. And I mean, this podcast is like one of my spots of trans joy for sure. It's just really awesome, the community that we've created around that. So I definitely get the idea of just sharing that, finding a way to share it. Have you all experienced any backlash against, have you had any of that anti-queer, anti-trans culture come at your business specifically?
Outside of some like random hateful comments on social media that like as soon as we see it, we delete it and get it out of there. We haven't. So I almost said yet, but I'm not going to do that. We just haven't, period.
Great. That's great. Yeah. So I noticed you on social media and I was a little curious about your marketing, just specifically because I know you're a new business. I'm assuming a small business as well. And like what, I'm just kind of curious. And in addition to, is social media kind of your main channel, or how are you approaching getting the word out there about Euphoria Threads and getting the designs out there, knowing that the corporations are kind of coming in all the places they can with the ads that'll take up the space and, have the dollars that unfortunately small businesses just don't?
Yeah, it's fully organic growth through social media right now. Like you said, you found us through Threads, and that is the most successful platform for us right now because of the queer Threads algorithm. Yeah. And it's really exciting. And, we mostly SJ will come up with the posts for that. And they pretty much treat it like a personal account. So I feel like there's an authentic voice that comes out. It's pretty genuine, and
smart.
We're focused on building community and like supporting other small businesses. We just did a sticker exchange with the Butch Boudoir Project, which is exciting. So we are also going to get started going to some events. So we're near DC, so we're not going to vend at Capitol Pride this year, but World Pride is here next year. And so we're planning to try to get a booth in DC next year, which will have huge crowds, and that'll definitely get us in front of a lot of the community.
Yeah.
That's cool. I've honestly never heard of World Pride. That sounds, what, can you tell us a little bit about it?
I can tell you a little of what I know.
Yeah. I'm just curious. Yeah. Whatever you know.
Yeah. So we heard of World Pride, I guess in 2014. It was in Toronto, and we thought, oh, let's go and see it. We didn't make that trip, but this year, or the last one, was in Sydney. And I think it's just like there's a city that changes every year, like the
Olympics.
Yeah. And so there's I'm seeing ads on Instagram now for like the World Pride Music Festival that's going to be here next year. And for a second I thought, is this real, or is someone just kind of jumping on this? But I checked the Capitol Pride website and it looks legit. So
cool.
It'll be a fun Pride if you want to. I don't know where you're located, but you have a year to plan to come to World Pride in DC.
I could road trip it there in like a day or so. But that is good to know about possibilities. Yeah. Vanessa, I don't know how far you are. I mean, I know you're a ways, but it would be a day or two in the car.
Yeah. I think it's like, honestly, DC is, I think it's like 7-hour drive. It's not too bad.
Yeah. I think it's about the same for me. Well, that's really cool to know. That is really cool to know.
That is.
Have you all ever thought about like, are you planning to mostly do direct to consumer? Are you considering any like other collaborations or forums, or are you just thinking, because it's mostly like, I mean, I hear you saying you're looking at going to some events to obviously be able to sell things in person at a booth, right? At a big event. Right. But other than that, it's mostly like direct to consumer through the site.
Yes. So We have never explored a business to business relationship or a partnership like that, but right now we're fully e-commerce on the
Nice.
website. We're on TikTok Shop, things like that. So
Got it.
If
Very
that's
cool.
working for you, just be, if you do start thinking about B2B, just be exceedingly careful. Exceedingly careful. And
is
don't be
this
afraid
from
to reach out to me.
experience?
Yeah, I used to run a manufacturing company, and depending on what company you're working with, they will call all the shots, and they will tell you what they're going to pay for things. So if you ever get into that kind of interest in doing that, reach out to me, and I can try to give you some advice, because it can get scary really quickly. It can also be very lucrative, but you have to balance it. So
Thank you. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
it hasn't. We haven't had an opportunity come up, and we're not actively going after anything like that right now. But as we grow, we might consider it. So I'll definitely reach out if that comes along.
So I know you're not going to be in a Pride event this year, but I noticed that you have a Pride collection on your site.
Yes.
So what, obviously that collection, have you done anything else to kind of prep for the Pride rush? Have you noticed a Pride rush happening?
We've noticed an increase in sales, but I'm not sure if that's connected to a Pride rush or because we're building more engagement.
Sure. Right.
So, but yeah, when we dropped our collection, which it's kind of our spring collection. It's not so like heavy on Pride messaging. It's still pretty much everyday Pride wear. We snuck in a rebrand, so we updated our logo, made a few updates to the website, which, that was really to reflect more of our brand. Our original logo was quickly put something that we like out there. So
just like our logo here at THP.
It's always a good time once you kind of get your identity more like fleshed out and everything, to then think about if your logo reflects what you're working towards and what you want people to think when they see you. So in our Pride collection, there are a lot of new designs that I'm excited to wear. SJ has not made those shirts for me yet. It's okay.
Do you need to submit an order slip or?
No. I just have to be patient.
Yep. Makes sense.
So, yeah. But something else we're doing to prep for Pride is, we don't keep a lot of inventory on hand.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're not creating a lot of waste from having things that aren't going to sell. And so to be prepared to get our turn times down, we've built up some inventory so we can ship orders out faster. And we also just finished updating our process so that, for our apparel, we were taking about a week after an order to be able to ship it. And now we're cutting that down to, depending on what's ordered, and if we have it, it can be as little as a day, but at most we can get things out in 4 days now, which I'm very excited for. The week turn time felt way too long.
Yeah. Even a week though for a drop shipper that you're independent, and because holding inventory, I don't think a lot of people realize how expensive it is to hold inventory.
Yes.
Yeah. And as you said, wasteful, and you can come out with something that you think is an amazing design, but then just nobody buys it. Yeah. And then what do you do with it? So if I'm buying from a smaller store, I generally give more leeway for lead times because of that. So one thing for listeners, if you're buying from a smaller shop, if they seem to be running a little slow, it's not that they're not interested in getting your order out. They just want to make sure you get everything right. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just understandable challenge for your business, but so awesome that you were able to, make some changes to that already and get it down, at least at this time of year. When I'm sure the people want that gear, before June, or at least before they go to whatever Pride event they're going to coming up.
Yeah, that's what I was worried. I was like, okay, we're getting very close to June, and I don't know when in the month people have their events, but we want to be able to get these out to them as fast as we can. So it's, our process for creating the shirts, like we've limited which styles of t-shirt we offer so that it's easier to have that blank product on hand, and then just which design people choose, and getting that put on the shirt is a lot easier than having all different colors.
That makes sense. Yeah,
it is
absolutely.
Smart.
Yeah,
a lot of people do last minute. I actually just did a 5-hour round trip to Columbus and back to pick up shirts for the organization I'm a part of now for Pride this weekend. So,
wow.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to do it. It's that's part of it, especially if you're not if you're trying to place an order and you're not in a big city. You got to go to the city to get the thing. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was looking at your website. I was looking at your designs. It was really cool. I have some things that I personally want. I love on the Trans Joy collection. There's the Dare shirt. I think that is really awesome. Definitely need that. It's Dare to protect trans kids. But on that program, and I know Vanessa and I are both actually elder millennials. It's really hard for me to, So that is just so fitting, because that was 100% what I grew up with. But I love these designs, and roping in incorporating the trans colors for a lot of it. I also love this Transcend shirt. I really love that line design on that one. That is really, really cool. But one of my favorite things on your site is the rainbow stickers that you all have, that has so Euphoria Threads has this whole collection of rainbow stickers that is all the different flags colored in the rainbow, and that's just so clever. I've never seen that before, and I love that. And especially I think that a lot of people who have part of their identity be some of those things that are a little less known, not just the standard queer flag, or even the Pride Progress flag, or even the trans flag. I think beyond that, it's probably the lesbian flag is probably a little bit more recognizable. I've got the non-binary flag behind me, but even having the polysexual flag, the pansexual colors, the asexual colors, the genderqueer, gender fluid. I mean, it's so cool to have all of those options, because I hear from a lot of folks who identify with those terms, or whatever we're kind of words we're using for those semantics, but that it's hard to find that representation. It's hard to find the flags, but it's definitely hard to find any merch that's not a flag. So I think that's really cool, because and stickers are fun too, because it's it can be that subtle, if somebody's really conservative, they're just going to be that's kind of a strangely colored rainbow, just not get it, which is kind of safer sometimes. Yeah. It's just be and somebody else is wow, that's the genderqueer, those are the gender queer colors. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to call that out, because I think that's really cool. So I'll definitely look at getting some shirts, but also adding in some of those fun stickers too, personally.
Thank you. We for the stickers, they're so easy to add. So I think for your listeners, if you're looking for a specific sticker and we don't have it, all you have to do is message us, and we can make it very quickly and post it and make it available. So we're trying to be as inclusive as we can, knowing there are only two of us, and between us, we don't encompass every identity. So we really want to be open to hearing from anyone, hey, I don't feel represented. Here's what would make me feel represented on your site. And then I can have that in my life. So.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Very, very cool. So another thing that I wanted to ask you about was your giving back program. So I noticed on your site, it looks like 20% of the profits go to, that's a really high percentage of the profits to go, towards a good cause in the queer community. And I know that you, there are some specific organizations that you support. So I just want to give you a chance to tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. To be clear, it's 20% of profits, not sales.
Yes.
Still
a lot,
it's
though.
considerable.
It's still a lot. You can't do 20% of sales. That would put you under. That's just not possible. Yeah.
We have right now, we're supporting 3 organizations, and we're tying like each specific product relates to one of those 3 organizations. 2 of them are big national organizations and one's a regional. So I'll talk about the regional one first, which is Side by Side. So that's based in Central Virginia in the Richmond area. And they're specifically focused on supporting the LGBTQ youth of Virginia, so that they can define who they are, they can flourish, they can grow, and supporting the families and guardians and communities for those youth. So every item on our website that has a design that's related to the youth community, the proportion of profits from those items goes to Side by Side. The other 2 bigger organizations are the Trans Lifeline. So all other trans and gender nonconforming designs, those profits go there. And then the Trevor Project, which is the rest of the designs. Something that we'd really like, we chose Side by Side because I'm familiar with it. I went to school in Richmond. We'd really like more to focus more of our giving back to some of the more regional organizations that are doing work. So if you all have any recommendations, or if your listeners have recommendations and you want to suggest an organization that's like on the ground doing the work specifically, like you can see the impact to the community more directly, I'd love to hear it. So DMing us on socials or emailing us through the website. We are really open and want to get our giving back program to have a more clear, direct impact.
So awesome.
And you can definitely see more clear, direct when it's something smaller too. So
and I feel like a lot of those regional or local organizations don't get the same funding that the Trevor Project and the Trans Lifeline, although those are really great organizations and they, do a lot of good. It is easier for them to get funding. Even folks who are not in the community might have heard of them, or that's those are kind of some of the ones that you start to hear of right away, right after, kind of like HRC and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's, that starts to come up, especially within the trans and gender nonconforming community. So but yeah, it is. I totally agree. When I was a teenager in Atlanta, this organization doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but I spent a lot of time working with an organization that was really focused on supporting queer youth. And it was like a literally, it was very supportive. It was very life-changing to have that organization. They had support groups and events that, had adults kind of as mentors / chaperone, a little bit, but not in an annoying school type way, but just a way so that there were some adults in the building, and then the kids could do what they wanted to do and socialize and have a space to, and they would also help people who, if they got kicked out of their house and stuff like that after they came out, so that was just really instrumental for me throughout high school. It was really, really major. And I do know, I will send you a link to, there's an organization in Oklahoma that we highlighted like several episodes ago when we were talking about Next Benedict, that is a really great local organization in that area. And it's actually like has some indigenous ties and indigenous run and stuff like that. So it's a very, from the research that I did, it seems like a good organization. So I'll definitely pass that one. I don't remember the name of it, to be honest. I'll have to check my notes, but I think maybe it was Freedom, Oklahoma, actually, because I remember when I heard the name, I was like, that sounds like a right-wing thing.
Yeah.
But then it turned out that it wasn't, but I'll double check that, make sure that that's the name. But yeah, that's one I can think of. But yeah, I mean, it's just it is just great to be impactful in so many ways, but especially in those ways that are doing direct work with queer folks, and especially with queer youth, because we talked a lot, on the show before about how our hearts go out to the queer youth right now who are experiencing this. We're experiencing all this anti-queer and anti-trans sentiment as adults who've, at least had time to develop and maybe have resources to go to therapy or, things like that. And for queer youth, that it just seems like it's just a really tough time to be a queer youth. So definitely want to support any organizations that are supporting queer youth. So that's really awesome.
And thank you for sending that recommendation over in the future.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Cool. Well, is there anything else you want to like add or, throw in? Do you have any?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. So
Yeah.
I think we like our mission at Euphoria Threads is specifically to uplift trans and queer joy. SJ and I are being very intentional not to let that turn into toxic positivity.
Smart.
It feels like the biggest risk with that focus. But we chose that because there is a place and there's a time for rage and fight and like having teeth. And a lot of people are doing that really well already. So we didn't think we needed to add our voice to that. So what we're hoping to create is kind of a soft place to land when you need a break from doom scrolling and you just want something that is showing some hope and brightness for the community. So with that, we want to expand into creating more connection. And both of us are introverts and quite reserved, so this might be a pipe dream. But, creating community events, whether they're in person or virtual, to help bring people together. I've got some draft Spotify playlists that, people can listen to when they're on their way to and from Pride events that might showcase new LGBTQ artists that they haven't listened to, but also have some like pretty mainstream songs to keep your interest as you're getting through new music. So we are an apparel and accessories business, but we're focused on the community. And so we're looking at different ways to expand in that way to just create more pockets of joy and euphoria for the community. I also, SJ, created a discount code that we can share with you and for your audience.
Awesome. Yeah.
So it's Transcending Humanity. It's your podcast name. That's the code. And it's 20% off your order. So,
right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, anything less than 20% just doesn't feel big enough to me. So I'm like,
yeah,
we'll
I
start
hear
at 20.
ya.
Yeah.
But it's also as on the business end, you're like, but
Yeah,
I get it.
We're making sure we're covering costs.
That's very generous of you, though. So again, that discount code is Transcending Humanity. I'll have that in the description for people to check out. So
yes, thank you so much for that. Yes, I will very likely be using that as well for my order. I will I'll take you up on that. But that is awesome. Yeah, and I think that's great. I think 20% you know, like I get it that sometimes if it's like 5 or 10%, it's like, oh, that was a few dollars, you know. But yeah, at the same time, it is a tricky balance as someone in business, because you know it's so awesome to hear that you all are so invested in the community and want to be so active with the community. And it's also true that you have to be a sustainable business in order to do that. You have to continue to exist, and so you have to, like, you know, you want to be generous but a little careful, because if you're too generous, then, you know, if you're not covering costs, then that ends up not being good. So but I think that is really wonderful. Well, so do you want to just tell us where people can find you? I mean, we've mentioned Threads, but do you want, and we'll definitely put the handle and we can put the site in our show notes. So anybody listening, please check the show notes for this. But if you also want to call it out, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so it's euphoriathreads.com is our website, and all of our socials are Euphoria Threads Co, like CO, like company. So that's Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Awesome.
It's great having the same consistent one over everything too.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have chosen to put Co in there, but someone has it without it somewhere, and we wanted consistency.
Yeah, smart.
Because it makes it so, because if people are going cross-platform, you totally need it. Yeah.
And also, honestly, I think adding the Co gives it a little bit more of an official vibe too. So I think it's actually a good thing.
Well, good. That makes me feel better. Thanks.
Good move. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Misty. And please, everyone listening, check out Euphoria Threads. Put your queer dollars, give them to some queer people. Let's get a little queer money circle going around. Get ready for Pride. You know, get your gear, get your flair, and know that you are not supporting like greedy Target or Walmart or whatever other corporation is like really problematic, even beyond the lack of real Pride support.
Yeah,
that's for another episode. But thanks again, Misty, and we'll have to catch up with you soon. I'll definitely send you that rec, and we'll definitely have to keep chatting and see. I hope the Pride season goes so well for you and SJ.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Have a great night.
All right.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Hi, Jess.
Hi.
We just got bigger on the screen.
I know, the screen changed.
For listeners, I'm not sure how different it's going to look for the video version, but I'm trying out a platform called Riverside, which is like a podcast hosting / video / all kinds of thing, kind of doohickey. Instead of Zoom, just to switch it up, because it also makes it easier for me to do clips and stuff like that for advertising. So if you're wondering why things look or maybe even sound different, it's because of that. Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Anyone listening, we'd love to hear. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Well, so for the rest of the episode, we wanted to kind of continue the conversation a little bit about Pride and queer business support. And I have seen several posts about Target and Walmart and such recently. It definitely is still fresh in LGBTQIA folks' mind that it is not not a great thing to support. And there's been a lot of kind of slam posts of like, I found this back rack at Walmart, like facing the dressing room, just like a couple of crappy shirts or whatever. But I think we all know, I've also noticed a lot of speakers, like a lot of folks who do a lot of, public speaking as part of their, job or making money or whatnot, their own business, that they have been talking about that they're not booked as much. Like Angelica Ross mentioned that like she hasn't been booked as much as she has in previous years, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, because it's
and
Angelica Ross.
yeah, well, and I feel like that, yes, and also I've noticed basically the same story from some less famous folks too. That's a little less surprising from, but yes, I think that is indicative of the same thing but a different thing, because that's really showing that the business community, which is a lot of times who is employing those speakers, right? That the business community as a whole, even a community that wouldn't necessarily have a merch collection, but they would have a Pride speaker for their, Pride ERG or whatnot, that the businesses are less invested in the queer community, or there's something about it that is having them be hesitant towards having speakers that they've had for the last several years. So that is a little troublesome, just as like kind of a flag in our greater culture that is happening. And of course, it just perpetuates the thing of, queer folks being isolated from the larger society if we are less acceptable in certain ways in which we were more acceptable, a few years ago, and now all of a sudden we're not, the board is against it or corporate's against it or whatever. Like that is a bit of a troubling sign.
Yeah.
So, and I did also just want to talk about, and like, I have some questions for you about your business, Vanessa. I know you've been working on that more recently, and I was trying to look up your site, but I don't think I have the right site because I was coming up with a different.
Oh, there is another Vanessa Joy that's a photographer. She's a much more famous photographer than I am. She's a full-on influencer. Actually, I sent her a message the other day, see if she responds, just saying, sorry, I honestly didn't know you existed when I chose my name. And then throughout my entire political thing, like, I wouldn't be surprised if people were reaching out to her. So, but yeah, she's VanessaJoy.com. So if you want to check out that Vanessa Joy, and I'm Venestradiol.com. That one of my exes said it should be pronounced Venestradiol because it's estradiol. But I still like Venestradiol better. I think it just flows better off the tongue. So
I think it's your word, so you get to.
Yeah, well, it's based off of estradiol, but
right.
Estradiol is spelled estradiol. So
right.
So yeah, it's venestradiol.com is my photography and business coaching website. So
okay. Yeah, I did come across the other Vanessa Joy, and I was like, this is not the Vanessa that I know.
No, she's much more cis.
Yeah,
she's very pretty.
Definitely coming across that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what? I know you've normally, mostly done real estate photography, but you've recently started to do some headshots, some things like that. What other packages are you offering?
I'm trying to branch out. So like with real estate, I also just started offering 2D floor plans of houses. I was trying out some different ones and using Cubic Casa now. But I'm limiting myself just doing real estate photography, especially with so much competition in my area and so many realtors that won't hire me because I'm trans.
Sure.
So I'm trying to break into headshots, portraits, senior photos, events, all that kind of stuff. So I just started advertising all that, and I have to kind of build up a portfolio first. So I need some clients first in order to do that. But once I have some people on board and can build out my portfolio, I think I start getting some more business that way. But real estate photography is what I'm good at, but I've been a photographer for 25 years. So I have a learning curve, but I also set my pricing accordingly right now. Like my portrait and hedge, like I'm doing senior photos for $150, which is really, really cheap. But I'm also, learning in the process. So I'll adjust that later on.
Nice. I know where you are. It's very red.
Mm-hmm.
But have you considered at all, like looking at bigger cities, like queer community. I don't know if it's more like, I don't know. I would imagine that maybe like not a huge population still, even in some of those bigger cities in Ohio. But it's like, it's also one of those things where like, if you're trying to get like family portraits or something and you're a queer family, or, you know, you're going to have a wedding, and it's not even necessarily the event photography, but like the pre-wedding photography and stuff like that. It's a little more, you know, staged, and
Yeah.
that like, you know, sometimes it's like, as a queer person, you want another queer person.
Mm-hmm.
Is that anything you would consider? Are you close enough to any of those big cities to consider that?
Yeah, I mean, I advertise myself locally as a queer photographer, but yeah, because it also roots out the riffraff. I don't want clients that don't want me around them. But I live close enough to Akron, and Akron's a big enough city that I can get business out of there, and I can still get business out of Cleveland if I want. So it's just all depending on how much I want to drive. And then Columbus is about 2 hours away. And I mean, eventually, I don't want to be in Ohio the rest of my life. I want to be in the Pacific Northwest, but Ohio keeps roping me in, especially since I just signed on as co-executive director of Ohio Equal Rights. So that's going to be keeping me busy here for the next 2 years. So yeah, as much as I want to leave Ohio, I keep digging in deeper. So
sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Well, cool. Okay, well, I pulled up your site. Oh, I love this. This is great. This is very cool.
I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
It's Squarespace. You can make such nice websites in
Squarespace.
Yeah.
Super quick. Trying it out.
It looks so professional, but that entire thing took me like maybe 45 minutes to put together. So
that's awesome.
Here's plugin Squarespace. Not a sponsor, but could be. You
could be Squarespace.
Yeah.
We would consider you strongly.
I highly doubt Squarespace is listening to this with of our 85, 90 listeners. So, well, maybe one of them might be, involved. Who knows? But
you never know.
So we did. I am trying to grow the podcast. Jess put me in touch with the Feminist Podcast Collective. So I had my first meeting with them. And so you might start seeing some advertisements on this show for some other podcasts that I plug in. And then we advertise on there just to kind of help grow. Podcasts in general lately have been having trouble growing. So, yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, no. What were you gonna ask? I think the supply of podcasts is just very high. It is. There's just, there's just a lot of podcasts out there. There are so many. Even my list of what I listen very often when I work, unless I'm really having to like deep focus on something, and just around the house doing chores and stuff. I listen to a lot, but I still have a huge running list of the things that I need to get to. So it's tough. Yeah. And it makes us more, we're getting a little more professional, legitimate with some for real advertisements. And and also hopefully getting our advertisement on some of their spots. It might also help us bring in some interesting guests, or at least have a good network.
I'm definitely pushing. Actually, I've been talking to. I became after that last episode with Natalie Knepp. She and I text all the time now. She gave me her phone number and she wants to be on the show. So
nice.
But yeah, I'm looking to try to get like more guests lined up too, especially some like Ohio State House reps, and just to really just broaden things, like especially like this year doing with the show where we're focusing more on humanity over the trans stuff, just to broaden our horizons a little bit. Has nothing to do with photography, but plug the podcast however I can.
No, I mean, that's great. And I mean, the whole, trans folks are like, we are whole people. I think we end up focusing a lot on transness because there's so much pushback right now against it. But it's like, we do all sorts of normal stuff too.
I don't know where I heard it. It's a quote that I echo a lot, but the being trans is the least interesting part about us.
Yep.
So it's just what's up front and center right now. But we're all we're all people. We just happen to have this one little thing about us that we can't help it. It's just there. So
Yep. And some people just can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their problem.
Yeah, fuck them.
So, whoops.
Yeah. This show's never going to be monetized on YouTube, so whatever.
That's all right. Well, since we're talking about queer businesses too, and I'm here, I figured I would also plug my project that I've been, to be honest, the listeners here know I've been like kind of taking a break from it. Just taking my breath because I spent a ton of time last fall and winter working a lot on this project. So I created an organization called Making Gaby last year. I've mentioned this on some previous episodes, but Making Gaby is it's a blog site, and I have some digital courses on there, totally online. It's for queer and trans folks who want to become parents, and I eventually would like to also have some more content on there for queer and trans folks who are parents, like parental support and stuff like that. I have a whole big vision for it that I won't get into here, but I've been plugging it away at some different aspects of it for a while, and I've been able to actually be hired by a couple businesses and do a little bit of speaking from it. But I did, that's the only way I've actually figured out how to make any income from it, to try to keep it going, because just like this podcast, even though it's a small thing, I kind of call it a project. It's a business technically, mm-hmm. and it does cost money to just keep up just the site and all the functionality that I've got going there. So I just wanted to mention the digital courses. They're basically 2 queer family building courses. And the first one is really an introduction. It's really best for people who are curious about becoming a parent. They haven't done a lot of research. And really my goal of bringing all this information was really to present it from a queer lens. So instead of having it be like, when I was getting that information looking to become a parent, it was like information slated towards hetero folks a lot of times who are having why am I losing the word? Fertility challenges. There we go. Brain. And then there would be like a little piece on there for like, oh, and if you're queer, this is also relevant, right? So I really wanted to kind of flip the script on that and have it be that I'm a queer person who's gone through this experience, done a lot of research on it, and my audience is queer folks as well. So I really wanted that to be the forefront and that to be where I was writing from. So the queer family building course is free. It's like, it only takes about an hour to go through the whole thing. But yeah, it's just an intro, and I just wanted to have that be something to kind of give the community. And again, if you've been doing a lot of research on queer, conception options and queer family building, that one is probably like stuff you already know. But for people first starting out, I tried to make it as non-biased as possible, understanding that even I cannot be completely unbiased. But I just did my best to present the information on issues, everything ranging from adoption to, at-home insemination to inseminating with a doctor in a fertility clinic and in vitro fertilization, all of that. Just kind of present the options that are possible, specifically talking to queer folks in the US. And then the second course is a little more advanced. It's really geared towards, people who are trying to conceive and also will utilize a sperm donor, whether it's a known donor or an unknown donor. But it kind of goes off of the like adoption track. And it's more detailed information. And that one is $20. But it's longer than the first course. It's still close to an hour. But yeah, I have those on the site. We'll make sure to link the site. It's makinggaby.com. So I figure I might as well plug myself while we're on here, plugging queer businesses. But yeah, and I'd love to, I'd love to share that with people, even if people just come and take the free course, or even if they just come and check out the site and read a blog post or something. My goal was really to share information through a queer lens to queer folks and just try to support them, in their life, but specifically in their family building journey. So yeah.
I mean, there are way more queer folks out there than people probably even realize that are looking to adopt or looking for fertility things. Yeah, Vanessa, you sound so smart. And
Sorry, I
because
just
the
did it
queer
too.
community is pretty big.
Yeah.
We make up about 15% of the population. So if you ever feel like you're alone, you're not. If you're overwhelmed by the thought of, kids and procreation and adoption, stuff like that, check out Jess's site so you can kind of, dip your toes into it and know what you're doing. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not that kind of queer person. But there are a lot that
Yeah.
are very interested in kids.
Well, and to each their own.
Kids scare me.
Yeah, I get it.
Which is bad because I have one.
Well, that is like, that's a lot of times what cures that reproduction bug is a child.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's all, I just remind myself as a parent all the time when things are feeling a little tough, which, like, both of us, I know our kids are around the same age. So mine's 4.
Yeah, mine's 4 too.
Okay. Yeah. So it's, they say terrible twos.
3's worse.
3 is worse, right? So terrible twos. Then when they're 2, you start going, terrible twos. I didn't know this isn't that bad. And somebody says, well, just wait until you have a 3-nager. And you're like, what the hell is a 3-nager? And then they turn 3 and you're like, oh, I get it. Okay. And then nobody warns you about 4. Nobody says anything. There's no phrases. There's no cute thing. There's no nickname. But it is serious. It is serious because they don't want to please you anymore. They've got their setup, they've got their food, they've got their situation, and there they are, just ready to just.
They're independent, yet not at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely maddening. So, because you want to help them with something. And they don't want to help. They want to do it themselves.
Oh, no, you don't help them. No. And you don't rush them. No, because then it'll take.
They work on their own time.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I try to remind myself that it's all temporary. That's my little mantra. If I'm having a tough time with it, I'm like, this is all temporary. I have figured out, though, key to parenting is right about the time that you're like, you know what? I've figured out this phase. I have got it. I've got my tools. We're working better with this. I'm finally used to it. As soon as you start thinking that, next phase.
Oh yeah, it's out the door.
It's gone.
Never think that everything's lined up. So the best thing to do is get advice from other parents. So I've heard that 5 is actually kind of a fun year. So from what I understand, 8 is like the sweet spot for kids. Like 8 is the best year. But I don't know.
Yeah,
so.
we'll have to wait and see, I guess. And it's everybody has their ages or developmental periods that they're more comfortable with for whatever reason. But, yeah. Okay, I'm going to use that as a segue because during the last episode, I was talking about, what did I say? Polyglot. I think I was talking about polyglot. Yeah. And I thought it was a polyamory term, but it wasn't, right? It was not a polyamory term. I was wrong. And I called myself out on that. Okay, but I figured it out. Okay, the term that I was thinking of was polywog.
Polywog.
Okay, so a polywog can mean, in addition to meaning a larval frog or toad.
I was thinking, isn't that a Pokemon?
That's the science one. Right. I think maybe so. I don't know that much Pokemon. I know I shouldn't admit that, but I don't. Okay. So a polywog in the polyamorous community can be a child who lives in a polyamorous household. Now, the thing that is a little confusing about this for me is that this particular site that I'm looking at also says that it can also be a new member to a polyamorous relationship. So it obviously is, there are different terms. I don't want to get in trouble with any listeners who are like, that's not what polywog means, but I wanted to look it up. I wanted to have a little bit of information. And then I have one other polyamory term that I'm going to share just because, like I said, I find these terms fascinating. The queer community terms, the poly community terms, I'm not poly, but I find it interesting anyway. So, compersion. The term is compersion, okay? Which I believe is just a new word. So,
Yeah.
compersion is happiness at the joy of one partner's. Wait, sorry, let me start over. Happiness at the joy of one's partner in another relationship, sometimes referred to as the opposite of jealousy.
That is actually okay. I'm getting that. I never really thought I'd wind up in a poly situation, but here I am, starting to see two women, and they both know that the other one exists and they're cool with it. And they both have partners too, obviously. And like talking to my local partner, her other partner is a guy, and I don't feel jealousy there. Like maybe I would if her other partner was another woman. I don't know, but like I'm just more like I like just learning about him, and like I'm like, this guy sounds like someone that could be a friend. So, and like I don't have that whole jealousy thing, which is interesting. When I thought I would. Maybe it'll come up later. I don't know, but it doesn't really bother me. Like my relationship with the two women I'm seeing is my relationship with them, and they have their relationships with other people too. And maybe it's the estrogen in me too that I don't know. So
Could be, or
yeah.
yeah, hormones are a big player in this, or even just a different time in your life. I have been in polyamorous relationships before, not for a really long time, but yeah, it just isn't for me. But it's not completely foreign to me either. But yeah, that's it's interesting how it's just interesting how we all evolve as individuals, right?
It really is.
It's a trip.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can really surprise yourself. I think trans people know that really well.
Yeah, for cis listeners, like one of the first things that trans people notice during their transitions when they start medically transitioning. So I don't want to sound like elitist with the whole medical transitioning thing, but there is a medical transition part, and how the hormones reprogram your brain. So for me, my estrogen reprogrammed from a brain that had only been filled with testosterone. Jess was the opposite, and it's the way you see the world. Everything is so different, and that's one of the was it the same for you when you switched to T? Was the mental thing the first thing that you felt?
Oh yeah, I definitely think that I still think that the mental and emotional changes are the things that are the most noticeable, like all the time, and yeah, like the physical stuff is obviously noticeable too with surgeries and hormones, but yeah, the mental stuff is really, and that was the thing that I wasn't like expecting that, I hadn't really heard of that. Now that I've experienced it and am even more, I'm more heavily involved in the trans community and not just the queer community at large. I am having more conversations with people around that. So I'm hearing about it more, that is very, I would say that's, I don't want to say universal, but I would say that that's fairly common for trans folks, absolutely, to have a really major mental shift, not just an internal mental shift in how you think about yourself and that, euphoria, but also just in the way that you react to things, in the way that you process things, either mentally or emotionally, energy levels, even like pain levels can be really different for people who are going through, or are experiencing HRT or taking HRT. And yeah, for me, I think part of it was, a lot of it was, I didn't even recognize dysphoria as dysphoria. I just thought it was sad. Like, I was just like, oh, this is how I am, and I didn't ever, once I really started to understand like that word, and that's what I was experiencing. And the flip side of that was really huge. But yeah, definitely. And what I find really interesting about the mental piece, though, to touch on that one more time, is that I have experienced myself, and I know you have said yourself, and I've heard several other people say that one of the biggest things is once we get on the hormones that feel better to our brains, we are calmer.
Yes.
And I think that's interesting because, you know, my body was producing estrogen dominant, right? And now I'm moved to more testosterone dominant, and you did the opposite, but we both feel calmer, you know, which also kind of, it doesn't surprise me too much from the estrogen perspective, but like testosterone has the whole hype of like the anger piece. Like I actually personally feel I'm a lot slower to anger on T than I was before.
I mean,
so it's just interesting.
It was, as you were saying, it's like part of the trans experience is it's really, our brains are in the wrong body, and the medical transition is to work to fix that. And so for you, your entire life, your body was producing estrogen, and your brain's like, where the fuck is my testosterone? Right. I need my testosterone in order to survive. And for me, it was the opposite. I was making testosterone, and my brain's like, where's my estrogen? It's that simple. The whole trans experience. It is that simple.
Yep. And it is true with the science of our brains, and they are looking into that more. I know we touched on that in the episode that we did a while back with Shay Barnes. So if any listeners are interested in hearing more about that, you can probably pop back to that episode and listen to some more about that. But this is actually, you know, in addition to anecdotal experiences from the community and the two of us specifically, this really is something that is being studied scientifically as far as brain development in utero, and brain development throughout someone's life, and how hormones affect that development, and how a lot of people of trans identity have brain patterns that are aligned with the sex, the gender that they feel more comfortable with, right? So yeah, it's a trip.
It is wild. I need to figure out how to sign up to donate my body to science when I die.
Oh yeah.
Just because I think trans people need to be studied more. So
hey.
I have to figure that out. If anyone knows like a good way to do that, to like not just organ donor, but like research donor for trans people to donate to universities or whatever for science, please contact us at the show, because that's something I'd be interested in doing. So.
Another reason to reach out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can reach out and touch us, you know. Vanessa's libido has been, since I'm now back on hormones.
Yes, your levels were adjusted, and you're feeling.
Yeah, actually, I just got my test results back, and I'm like 497 now, up from
Is
like
that
32.
Too high?
So now it's.
I mean,
it's
I know they
high,
have that, like they don't want you to go over a certain.
Yeah. But it's also only been 2 days since my injection.
Oh.
I inject on Mondays, and I was going to have my blood test done next Thursday, but I was there today to get some STI tests done. And I'm like, I might as well just do my hormones while I'm here. Mm-hmm. So, but it still seems kind of high. But then my progesterone's super low, so who knows? That's what doctors are for. So
yeah,
chat with her.
They'll tell you. Well, if they try to mess with your medication, tell them, I mean, you probably would do this anyway, but I'll just say it. Tell them that you want to retest further away from your injection, because you know,
yeah,
I know you worked hard to get the medication at what you felt like was going to be a better level. And I saw someone talking to someone recently who went through a similar thing where they got the blood test right after they had done their injection, and then they were told it was too high, and they were like, let me come back and do that. Maybe not.
Yeah, my doctor doesn't like working off of one blood test. So just like when I was low, I had 2 blood tests.
That's so smart.
Because there could just be an anomaly.
Yeah.
You never know. So
yeah.
But
nice.
That's another thing trans people are used to in needles.
Yes. Lots of blood work.
So many needles.
Lots of blood work. They've been making sure that my blood is still flowing. That's the thing that happens with testosterone. It can make your blood a little slow.
Do you inject your tea?
I haven't been, but I'm actually just about to switch. I'm just about to do the switch.
That's even more needles.
Yeah.
They're not bad. It's just funny, just all the needles. And we add more when we give ourselves our happy juice. So
yeah. I've been doing the gel for a long time, and it's been good. I finally got my levels to where I wanted them to be. I was starting out really, really slow and low, which is what I wanted. I'm still not planning on taking the maximum dose, just because I really don't want to mess with my hormones too much. I don't want to do anything drastic.
Yeah.
I want to just see how things are. But I get really annoyed with the gel in the summer because you're, like, I have a 4-year-old and I don't want him to have contact with the gel. So I end up having to wear short sleeves when I really want to wear tank tops or, like, let's be real, no shirt.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you did all that too.
I did. I paid for the lack of boobies. So, I want to, like, let it fly. I want to get some sun, get a nice tan on my chest there.
Shirtless trans guys are just a whole meme,
It's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. So yeah, I am going to switch to injections because then I won't have to worry about that. But yeah, I'm close to making that switch. I haven't quite done it yet. So we'll see we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed. But I think it'll be good. Okay. I think it'll be nice to not have to worry about it until, once a week, and we'll see.
You're getting the same dosage every single time too.
Yeah.
So,
it's less of the gel is, like, definitely, it's definitely a little bit, is it really getting in there? Is it all getting in there? We're not quite sure. And it definitely tested even from my lower doses. My T was, like, pretty low for a while. I don't know if my body just finally got used to absorbing it or something, but I definitely I've heard from a lot of people that it's a lot easier to control when you're putting it in your body. Because then, it's really clear you really
the exact dosages. And it's just once a week, and it's so quick.
Yeah.
The entire thing takes like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that, just because then I don't have to worry about having this, like, the weird after dried gel on my shoulders all day. Ugh.
Crusty.
Yeah.
It's making me think of dried jizz.
No. Ugh. It's clear. Okay. It looks nothing like jizz. I just want
dried trans girl cum. That's clear.
Okay. Okay.
You're like, fuck you. Way TMI. Trans girls squirt, folks. Just so you know, we squirt because we still have prostates.
I don't know how I'm always, like, just a little surprised. I'm just like, wow, she really,
I went there.
Yeah, she did. She went there.
Well, I also just like educating people too.
No, that's great. That's great.
I don't have a filter.
It's really important.
I really need to. Not with this new position as at Ohio Equal Rights. I really need to remember to hold my tongue when I'm doing, like, official things for that. Like, on this show, whatever. This is us. But for that, like, I have to be professional. It's gonna be hard.
Professional. It's good to exercise those muscles if you can, but I know it can be challenging.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, we should probably wrap up.
Yeah. This actually has a timer on it. That's kind of handy.
Oh, nice.
Hour and do you have the timer on your screen?
No, I don't.
No? Oh, hour and 13.
Okay.
So
cool.
That's handy.
That's good time. I'll see if I can do this conclusion a little bit.
Yeah, rock it out.
Okay. Thanks for joining us for this episode, everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Buzzsprout. That's all still correct, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Pretty much any podcast platform. Most of our listeners are on Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout.
Okay. You can also access our audio files and YouTube directly at our site at transcendinghumanity.com. And that's where we have links to become a patron to the show as well, which is a great way to support the show. We love your dollars. This is an independently funded podcast, and we really appreciate any listener support with that, because it helps us from not having to take quite so much out of our own pockets. Most of all, yours, Vanessa.
I want to take a chance to thank our Buzzsprout subscribers, because you can actually subscribe to us two ways. You can do it on Patreon, and thank you to our one Patreon subscriber that we have right now.
Yes.
And we have 4 Buzzsprout subscribers, which now makes it so our hosting is free, because they before they send money to you, they just apply it towards your bill. So our podcast hosting right now, thanks to our Buzzsprout, it's hard to say Buzzsprout, your subscribers, has made this free. So that does help. Thank you very much to the 4 of you.
Yes. Thank you. Each and every 4 of you.
We'll get there eventually. We'll have
We will.
hundreds. Yeah. And eventually I'll actually be able to, pay my co-hosts. So that'll be nice. But
Yeah.
Eventually.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.